Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, and today we're gonna talk about your cycle, period, and breastfeeding. This is a topic not everybody talks about. This is a topic you can't just casually ask your mom friend about, and I made a video like that my first time around, first time postpartum with my daughter. Now I am 8 months postpartum with my son, and I already had 2 cycles, and I'm ready to share my experience because last time it was very helpful to so many of you. I received so many comments and so many of you were thankful and grateful that I shared this with you. So first of all, let me introduce myself. If you're new here, my name is Karyna. I am a full-time mom, and like I said, I have a daughter and a son. My daughter is 3 years old and my son is 8 months old. Michaela and Leonardo are their names, and here on my channel I share my experiences. Like today I share ideas, tips and tricks to try and make motherhood and fatherhood a bit easier on you. So if this sounds like something you could get a value from, consider subscribing, hit the bell icon. I post every single Thursday, and sometimes I do a bonus video here and there. So let's start with the fact that, in case you don't know, breastfeeding on your period is safe. Okay, let's get this out of the way, just because I know that it can be confusing and it can be a question. In case this is your first baby, it's your maybe first time breastfeeding and getting your cycle back. For all of my new subscribers who haven't seen my previous video and who were going through the second pregnancy with me together, this time of postpartum can be very uncertain and kind of tough mentally, despite the fact, like I said, it's safe to breastfeed. You may experience some changes in breastfeeding patterns, in supply and your baby's behavior. So in case you haven't experienced those yet, I want you to know and want you to be aware that this can be the case when you get your cycle back. Or in case you are going through these things, I want you to know that it's totally normal and maybe give you some ways to fix it. So first of all, some women experience lower supply when they are on their first few days of their period. Some women experience lower supply in the middle of their cycle. So again, totally normal. Your baby can be a little fussy and maybe wanting to cluster feed and nurse maybe more often and things like that. So that can definitely be linked to your period and the time of your cycle. Very different for every woman and even different from baby to baby, and I'll tell you my experience later. So I have a video on how to increase your milk supply, which applies usually to the times when your baby is going through growth spurts, but also those tips can help when you're experiencing a real dip in your supply. Although again, from what I know, and yes, I'm not an expert, I'm not a lactation consultant, but I dove very deep in this topic, and it's my second baby, breastfeeding my second baby. I breastfed for almost 2 years my first one, so I know quite a lot about it. So anyways, sometimes you just have to ride this wave and wait until this time passes and your supply is back to normal. So yeah, it's just part of the process sometimes, but you can always try, right? So I'll leave that video down below. You can always try to increase your supply, but anyways, this can happen. Another thing that can happen on your period, your nipples can get sore. Yes, that's right, just like in the very beginning of your breastfeeding journey, and sometimes it's very annoying and very uncomfortable. Again, it is what it is. I just hope you know that it's linked to your period, and you know, just wishing you patience, and it doesn't have to happen to you, but in case it does, you know why it's happening. So another thing I wanted to make sure you also know, and this is like the biggest thing you guys, or not you, maybe somebody who already watched my previous video, other moms were very happy to hear. Cycles postpartum are irregular for the most part, very irregular, and it's so confusing and so uncertain, especially if you are not using any kind of hormonal birth control, if you're doing natural family planning and things like that. And another thing I want to mention, just in case, breastfeeding is not a form of birth control. In case you did not get your postpartum period just yet and you're exclusively breastfeeding, your ovulation comes before your first period, so you can potentially get pregnant. So please don't use breastfeeding as a form of birth control, even in the beginning, because some women get their periods back as early as 6 weeks postpartum. And so let's get into my story this time around. I got my first period, which means my ovulation happened before that, about 2 weeks before that, right? When my child was still 6 months old, although he will turn 7 months in just a few days. So technically still 6 months postpartum, I got my period. Comparing to my first postpartum experience with my daughter, I got my first period when I was 8 months postpartum. And I think I know why it happened like that, because my daughter started solids much later than my son did. In case you're new here, my son started solids at 4 months of age, and he is having a great appetite. He's a big baby, and at 6 months old he was eating probably as much as Michaela was eating when she was 8 months old. So that makes a lot of sense. When kids start eating more solids, you breastfeed them a little less. Plus, Leonardo is not that interested in nursing all day long like Michaela used to be. So yeah, usually, again, from what I know, for the most part, women get their periods back when kids start solids and when they, you know, eat good portions already. So maybe like 2 months into starting solids. So just a little tip for you, a little timeline in case you are waiting for a period to start. So yeah, my period came back at 6 months postpartum. It was a normal period, meaning it was a normal amount of blood, which is, you know, if you're watching this, I guess you understand this is gonna be a TMI video, and I hope you're okay with that. I hope this is helpful because my previous video was. So I'm just gonna keep sharing. I'm fine with sharing this because I know a lot of people need it. So it was a normal period for me, but the only part that was not normal, and I'm so grateful for it, it was absolutely painless. I was feeling great. I did not feel like I was having my period at all, like at all. I was having lots of back cramping before my period for weeks, so I knew something was happening, but during my period I didn't even feel I was having my period. I used to have painful and very painful periods. I heard that a lot of women have like extremely painful periods to the point where they you know, have to go to the doctor, and sometimes they even call ambulance. Luckily it was not that crazy, but I would take painkillers quite often, yeah, it was hard, especially when it's like a change of season, change of weather. A few times a year I would have very rough periods. So my first cycle postpartum with baby Leonardo was extremely nice, and I was like, I didn't want to jinx it. I was like, okay, it's just the first one. It would be nice if the pattern continues. And then my second cycle comes, and here is the important part. It took 37 days. My cycle was 37 days. I got my second period in 37 days after having my first. And usually it's very hard to wait, especially like I said, if you don't do any hormonal birth control, you are wondering, what if you're pregnant? Where is your cycle? Especially, you know, if it's late. Because usually my cycles are 30, 28 days, 29 days. I was never the kind of person who knows to the second when her cycle comes. Again, I heard women who are like, I always know, it's like a clockwork, it's always there on time. If it's 1 minute late, I know something is wrong. So it was not always like this for me, but this second time around I knew it's gonna be the case, because my first time around it took my second period 42 days to come, and it was quite stressful. But this time I was relaxed because I knew I was safe and nothing can be wrong. It's normal part of postpartum to have irregular periods. With my first daughter until I got pregnant with my second, I was having pretty irregular periods for a long time. They started getting a little more regular, but I never got to the point in the course of like a year. I did not get to the point where they would be regular. So it might take quite some time. So stay calm, patient, and I want to give you a little tip and advice, and maybe like be the person who tells you just do it. Because a lot of women in that previous video were asking like, what should I do? It's been 10 days, I'm late. I always said, if you're worried and you're postpartum and your period is irregular and you don't know what if you can be pregnant, even if you were safe but you're worried, just take the test. And better take 2 tests, better 2 different tests, just to be on the safe side, because as soon as you take those tests, you'll know, okay, it's all good, just stay calm, live your life, and your period will come. I don't know for how long it's normal for your period to be irregular. Ask your doctor. I know that you will be scheduling, you know, your annual checkup with your OBGYN after you've seen him or her when you had the baby. You know, you have your postpartum checkup at like 4 weeks or 6 weeks, and then they will ask you to come back for an annual. So definitely by the time maybe you have a period or 2, ask them for how long it's okay for me to have those irregular periods, when should I be concerned, because I never got to that point, so I don't know that. But for me, for years they were irregular. The most irregular time was in the beginning, my first, second and third periods. And oh yeah, my second period was also pretty much painless. Only in the beginning I had that weird feeling of, you know, like when there's a lot of blood flow going down there, you feel like there's a lot of tension and just like very uncomfortable feeling for a few minutes here and there in the very beginning. But then after that, no cramping, not even like, you know, little feelings of heaviness in my stomach or bloating, nothing like that. Maybe very little, because I don't even notice, because again I compare it to how it used to be. So if this is gonna be the case, I don't know what baby Leonardo did there in my womb that it's no longer giving me this pain. I hope it stays this way, because it's a blessing. If you're a woman who used to have painful periods, now I'm telling you, there is hope. There is hope that your baby is gonna do some magic in there, and then you're gonna be pain-free for at least some time. Okay, maybe I'll update you on that in a year or so. So I'm very excited about that, because that was really influencing quality of my life. Mood-wise, I would say that I felt a little bit of mood swings before my period, but not sure if that was connected to my period, because I was going through some other things. With Leonardo, I did not notice any changes in his feeding pattern. I did not notice a dip in my supply. Maybe my nipples were a little sore here and there, maybe. Again, not very noticeable. So I feel very blessed and grateful for this. It can be totally different for you, so I hope this information helps you. It's good to know this, because it can be so confusing. This is not something your OBGYN tells you. This is not something your pediatrician tells you. Where do you find information about it? On YouTube, here, right? So yeah, another thing I haven't talked about in that video, having your period back helps you a lot with your sex drive. If you're still listening, I'm sure you're a mom who is breastfeeding, and I'm also pretty sure that you've experienced feeling not like yourself, because breastfeeding hormones do make you feel like you're just a mom and nothing else. So it was really nice to feel like a woman again, kind of, not fully, not completely, but I do feel surge of these hormones, especially around ovulation time. Again, because my periods are irregular, I don't really know when ovulation is happening. Anyways, my body is trying to ovulate around some time, and I do feel like myself, I do have some kind of sex drive, because it was absolutely gone for a long time. The same was with Michaela, and if you know, I got pregnant when I was still breastfeeding Michaela, so I've never actually got myself back. I've never actually felt totally myself again. And yes, I know, like, it's not about bouncing back, you're not the same person as you used to be, but I'm talking about just these hormones that's supposed to come back to normal, and if they don't, when you stop breastfeeding, it actually can be an issue and you should see your doctor. So I'm patiently waiting to be done breastfeeding this time and see how I'm gonna feel, if I'm gonna be feeling myself again, and if I'm gonna feel attractive again, and all these things. So yeah, if you are comfortable sharing your story, your journey, I'm sure this will be very helpful for other women. Leave your comments, leave your stories down below. Tell us when you got your period, tell us maybe some challenges you had when you got them with breastfeeding. Maybe I didn't say something, maybe I didn't know about some other things that can happen when you get your period and how your baby behaves, or maybe there's something else women need to know. Please leave it in the comments below. Also share for me, even because I'm very curious about your sex drive. When did it come back? If you're already done breastfeeding, did it come back right away? And when did you feel yourself again? Thank you so much for being here for this little girl talk. I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions I may be able to answer, leave them in the comments below. Remember that breastfeeding on your period is normal. Remember that breastfeeding is not a form of birth control. And remember that you just need to be patient. And if you're concerned, just take a pregnancy test. Be careful if you don't want to be pregnant again, and yeah, eventually your periods will become more regular and it's all gonna be okay. So yeah, if you want any more girl talk videos, let me know what you want to chat about, what are other topics that you seem there is not much videos about on here. Let me know in the comments. Any other video suggestions, always welcome. Thank you so much. Give this video a like, subscribe, and I'll see you next week. I want to wish you to have happy and healthy babies.